Our second speaker in this group is Amaris Martins on the topic of justice.
What does justice in our legal system look like to you? Surely it's about fairness, protecting the innocent, and punishing the guilty, right? That's what many of us tend to believe because it's the ideal version, the version we read in textbooks, see in TV shows, and is established in our Constitution. But for many Black women, the reality of justice is far from ideal. It is unfair, an empty promise, and doesn't exist. Justice has become a commodity available only to those who are privileged enough to obtain it. Let's take, for instance, the case of Tamika Houston. Tamika was a Black 24-year-old woman who went missing in 2004. She was an accomplished nursing student and auditioned for American Idol. In her case, the local police were slow to start the investigation. No national agencies wanted to help. Suspects were not interviewed, and her parents had to beg for media coverage to no avail, even though her uncle, Desmond Howard, was a former NFL star. The only coverage that Tamika's case received was through the Black and Missing Foundation, a nonprofit focused on bringing justice to missing people of color. However, 1 year later, Natalie Holloway, a white 19-year-old, would go missing on a trip to Aruba. She was from a wealthy suburban area in Alabama and received a full scholarship to a university. Once her disappearance was confirmed, the FBI, American military, and hundreds of members joined her family and their influential network in her search. Her disappearance appeared on international and local news stations, on documentaries and true crime shows, and even in books. Essentially, these were both two very vibrant lives, but only one of their lives was worthy enough to receive any form of justice. Tamika's story isn't the only instance of how poorly our legal system responds when Black women are in dangerous situations. For example, many of you have most likely heard of the infamous R. Kelly trials that are plastered on headlines and news stations everywhere. But did you know that in the documentary Surviving R. Kelly, one of the jurors in the trial openly admitted to not believing the testimony of the Black girls because of the way how they dressed and the way how they acted? Similarly, Daniel Holtzclaw, a former Oklahoma police officer in his trial, also openly admitted to taking advantage and abusing the low-income Black women that he had arrested because he thought that they were less likely to be believed. These stories hold a very heavy truth. So how is it that a system that's designed to protect and uphold justice fails so profoundly when it comes to Black women? The answer lies within the data. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, Black women are victims of crime at a higher rate compared to their white counterparts. However, they also reveal a shocking disparity in how their cases are handled. Their cases are far less likely to receive thorough investigations, thorough prosecution, and serious consideration from law enforcement and the courts, creating a significantly greater challenge for them to receive any justice throughout the entire legal process. It's no surprise that a system that's intended to target, and harm Black individuals wouldn't care if they were victims of harm themselves. Consequently, this leads to a lack of trust for these victims. According to the National Black Women's Justice Institute, for every Black woman that reports being a victim of a crime, at least 15 choose to remain and suffer in silence at the hands of a system that historically fails them. So let's take Tamika's story again, not just as something on some news headline, but take her as somebody that's close to you. Maybe your wife, maybe your mother, maybe your sister, or maybe even your daughter. All that you would want for Tamika is for her to receive the justice that she deserves. All you would want is for her life to matter to the world. Now, think of the countless Tamikas out there right now that are being silenced, forgotten, and neglected despite all that they had to endure. A system that leaves so many vulnerable could not, in good conscience, be called justice. So I'll ask you again, what does justice in our legal system look like to you? Does it uphold our ideals and deliver on its promises of fairness, protecting the innocent, and punishing the guilty? Or does it fall short from everything we expect it to be? Thank you.